Hey there, and welcome into CT Now, our new podcast. We're so happy that you're here with us for another episode. I'm Kristen Talent alongside Dr. Howard Binion, our Superintendent of Schools, and we have Josh Crowell, our Assistant Superintendent of Support Services, here for this episode. Hello.
Hello.
We're so glad that you're here to talk about something very important for our district, our 10-year facilities plan. And first, just kind of take us through what exactly is a facilities plan for a school district.
Sure. So a 10-year facility plan is basically taking as many points of data that we can across our district, looking at the life expectancy of our infrastructure, but also looking at the utilization of how we're using our facilities and how we're using our buildings. Then compiling all of that data and help projecting into the future how to best utilize, how to best, if we need to replace certain things, if we need updating to make sure we have the safest, we have the most, to articulate this, the most adequate spaces or above adequate spaces to help deliver our curriculum to our students. And so looking at all of this data, it gets compiled. We use outside agencies to help us as well. We use our inside expertise from our staff and also our community. And then we compile this plan to take us forward.
So one of the things, I just want to follow up with a couple of things. This all stems from our continuous school improvement plan that we've been working on for the past 2 years. And so one of those components, one of those goals is the 10-year facilities plan. Can you take us through that timeline of when we started this process?
Sure.
And then kind of what it looks like all the way up until we actually have the continuous school improvement 10-year plan?
So last spring, the spring of 2024, we put out an RFQ, which is a request for qualifications to various agencies. These were architectural firms, engineering firms, to allow us to pick the best suited firm with the best experience that they had to come and help us. So we went through that process last spring, and through a committee and board approval, we determined that Insight Design Studio would be the firm that would help guide us through this process. Once they were awarded the work to do for us, that last summer of 2024, they began mapping out all of our buildings, and they brought in various companies to do energy efficiency studies. They brought in roofing experts, HVAC experts. They brought in all of these different types of outside experts to come in and look at all of our facilities. And then from there, they started compiling data on the remaining life expectancy on what we have with all of our facilities. While that was going on concurrently, we started developing committees. And we have an internal committee and an external committee. And those committees were developed by input from our administrators and our school personnel. We have custodians, we have nutrition service, we have people within our tech department, our maintenance department, as well as principals and teachers and other support staff who are in our internal committee to bring their various skill sets and expertise and vantage points to determine where we start taking that information at and where we can go forward. And then on our external committee, we had recommendations from all across the district and principals reaching out to parents that may have certain skill sets or expertise, bringing them on board. But we also, as a district, reached out to various stakeholders that maybe represent local industry and local businesses and the local universities and the media and all of these other components, and bringing them together to have their viewpoint look at all of the various different data points that we're getting. And so where we're at right now is we've started compiling numbers, and we've done surveys. We've done just first round surveys. We're going to be doing more face-to-face interviews with our staff and with our greater community after the holiday break. But we will now move into a second phase, if you will, of committee meetings. And once a month, we bring our committees together, and our experts that we contracted with to guide us through this process will show them the data, ask for feedback, and we keep refining that data and we keep refining what our vision is to move forward. Are we providing a classroom that is, up to par for providing our curriculum? Are we staying on cycle with replacing our roofs when they need to be replaced? Are we replacing our HVAC? Are we providing safe campuses for our students to come in on? Do we have safe drop-off lanes and pickup lanes and all of those various different types of things? And through these meetings, we're going to be prioritizing all of these projects that kind of percolate up to the top, and we'll compile this list and we'll compile this plan. In June of 2025, this plan will then be presented to our board for formal adoption. Now, the beauty of this plan is that the foundation is going to be set to move us forward, but we all know things will change. So we know technology needs can change and technology offerings can change from almost monthly, almost yearly. And so 5 years down the road, if there's a change that we see that needs to be made, we have the adaptability with this plan to maybe move over to another silo. However, the foundation of the plan will be laid, so we do have that framework. And that's really important because we want our public to know where it is that we are at and where we want to get to. And as transparent as we can be will be for the benefit of our greater staff, our greater community, and our students.
And we're really lucky here because we do have beautiful facilities. Part of, though, keeping those facilities such great places for kids to learn is maintenance and
Sure.
doing these types of facilities plans to make sure that we're keeping things up to date, and then looking at places where we need to maybe build a new building down the road because we have growth in certain areas.
So we look at, and I'm glad that you bring that up. We do look at the demographics and the population shifts within our own city boundaries and within our own school boundaries. So again, going back to the basis of this plan, it's not just about the infrastructure of the buildings. It's about the total package of how we are providing as a school district and being good financial stewards of district resources. So we want to make sure, are we getting out to the classes, and are we getting out to the buildings like we need to be, and are we utilizing them in the best possible way? So if we're not, we know that we can make a change, we can make a shift, and we can better then use our facilities for our curriculum delivery.
And we're using classrooms really in different ways than maybe we were 10, 20 years ago. Kids need more space now to learn.
Sure. So I look back to when I was a student with Cape Public Schools. I graduated in 1992 from this district, and going through back then, Clifford Elementary was Hawthorne Elementary. Totally different dynamic now. And I say that because there's a higher level of population within that building now than when I went through. When I went through the high school here, it's the current junior high building. Those classroom sizes have changed. The offerings of what our curriculums are different. Years ago, you could have maybe a lesson that was brought in on a cart and it instructed to you, and then those materials could be loaded back up on a cart, taken to another classroom. Well, what the data and the research have shown us on the education side is having a dedicated space for those types of resources to be put into your curriculum aren't best facilitated by a cart. You need to have dedicated space. And so we're looking at that through this long-range plan, and that may mean some of our buildings have an expansion. We don't know that yet. We're still looking at the data, still going through all of the wants and the needs and deciphering between what's a want and what's a need. And then once all of those things, again, get lined out, we'll be able to prioritize where we need to go.
So once we collect all of that data, tell everyone that the plan on what we're going to do with the data, and then also possible not a renewal of our bonds as well in the near future, which is a no tax increase bond to help pay for some of those. So how will you prioritize what is on the plan once all of our data has been collected?
So it's a rather lengthy process in prioritizing what comes first, or where that comes in. It may be a phase 1 or a phase 2. So as a little bit earlier, I talked about having an internal committee and an external committee that has these monthly meetings. Throughout those meetings, there are going to be greater public meetings that take place too. So we will have the greater public be able to come in, look at what the work of our committees are doing, allow them to have feedback and input on what they also feel the priorities need to be. And then we compile all the work from the committees, the work from the greater public, and that'll help us prioritize what we need to do. So from there, once we have our priority list of, it'll probably, when you do a program of this magnitude, it'll be in the list of hundreds. So there's no possible way that we can get all of those types of things. So we'll probably look at breaking this up into phases. And where we've been beneficiaries of Cape Public School leadership is over the last several superintendencies, going back to Dr. Welker, going to Neil Glass, and now yourself, Dr. Binion, is being able to make sure we have stayed in a financial position to run a no tax increase bond about every 5 years. Our last bond that we ran was in 2019, and that was Prop Y. That helped with the expansion at Schroeder, the expansion at Jefferson, multiple other projects that we were able to reach across the district as well too. And we will look at repeating that process moving forward. So in the spring of 2026, we will more than likely be looking for another no tax increase bond that we will take our prioritized list, we'll match that up to what our bonding capacity is, and then we will be able to know what projects we're going to be going after so that we can have public input again on that. They can know what it is that they would be looking at. They know what they're going to get in return if they vote in the affirmative for a no tax increase bond, and then we start implementing those projects.
So with all of those projects, will there be projects that we can just pay from our own funds that we have each year out of our district? And tell them a little bit how we do that and how we move those monies over to our projects, our construction projects,
Our
as
capital
well. Capital
improvements.
improvement projects.
Capital
yes.
improvements.
Yeah.
So school funding is broken down into 4 silos. One, you have salaries, and then others. You also have capital improvements. And so that's a fund that we set up in the district. So let's say we have a hot water that breaks in our district. We have money set aside to fix that hot water heater. However, our budgets as a school district, because we have so many buildings, they're a little bit bigger than your typical household budgets. So they're a little larger. What this plan is going to do is it'll help identify projects that we can go after without having to touch bond dollars, because sometimes it makes sense to, no pun intended there, but it makes sense to go after some of those low-hanging fruit projects that are maybe a $5,000 project, a $10,000 project that you don't really want to bond out. And so the prioritizing will also encompass what we can get internally through just our regular budgetary process, and then what we need to go after with the bond dollars.
It's important work. It's work we could talk about probably for hours on end, but I think that's a good place for us to stop, and I would love if we could have you back to just kind of update us throughout
Absolutely.
this process after the first of the year, because it is important work, and we want for all of the people watching to know that they can be involved in this process through some of those community input meetings, and they can look for that information on our website and also on our Facebook page. Of course, our families get that information sent to them directly. So, Mr. Crowell, thank you so
Thank
much. It's a lot, but it's very important work again. So,
It's exciting.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it is very
big
exciting.
job.
And Dr. Binion, this is going to wrap up our 2024 podcast. This is it.
I know. I can't believe you kept inviting me back.
Well, you'll be back. You'll be back in 2025.
Excellent.
I hope for sure. But we want to thank people for being along with us on this exciting new ride as we launch this podcast, and we look forward to bringing you many more student and staff features in the new year. Until then, happy holidays and happy new year from Cape Girardeau Public Schools.